Hi, I'm Justin from CompCart, and today in our tech video we're going to do a couple basic front end alignments. The first is going to be the steering sweep, and the second is going to be the actual toe of the front end. Both are very important. The sweep is actually, when we measure that indicates how much your right and left side turn. We want both of those to start out turning at the same angle. After that's set, then we'll move on to the toe. And once the toe's set, we'll lock everything down and you should have a nice straight steering and ready to hit the track. So first things first, what we've done is we've removed both front hubs off the chassis, and for this particular video we're going to use what's probably the most common tool, is a sniper alignment tool. It's a pretty basic setup. This is what's called their V system, where it actually sets on the stub axle and it's held in place by two pretty strong magnets. So once we install these on both of the stubs, on top of the actual system there's a pretty basic bubble level. So just like anything else, we want to make sure that both of these are level. So you can just tap it with your finger, get the bubble in the center on both sides. Once you've done that and you've obviously physically turned on the lasers, then you're pretty much ready to go. Another quick recommendation, if you're going to start, or before you start doing your front end, it's really best to make sure that you have both your tie rod tubes loosened. So you loosen that just by loosening the inside and the outside jam nuts. For this setup it takes two 13mm wrenches. Some carts take a 10mm wrench and a 13mm wrench, so you'll know best with your chassis make. So with our tie rods loose, our snipers on, and everything leveled, we're going to go ahead and measure the sweep. There's a couple different ways on how you can do that. I'm going to show you the way that we do it at CompCart, and it seems to work pretty much the best. So with the lasers turned on, you can get a tape measure. Pretty much do everything in metric, so you can use an American tape measure. It doesn't matter as long as you're consistent. So you want to pick a center point on the chassis. Normally we just use the fuel tank mounting plate. Every chassis has this, so it's an easy place to start. You could use the center tube of your cross member. Some people like to use just off the steering column. The reason I don't like to use off the steering column is it's a little tough to be in the exact same spot every single time, and then obviously that will throw off your measurement. So it's pretty basic, and what we're going to do here is we're going to hold the tape measure up here firmly, and with the lasers turned on, you're just going to turn the wheel to the left, and the laser beam, you want it to be on your tape measure, and you turn it all the way until the steering opens up and the laser starts to come back out. So when you get to the furthest point on this side, for instance, it's about 24.8, okay? So we're going to go to the other side, and ideally we want both sides to be the same. So you may have to go back and forth a couple times to get both sides equal. And once you have this measurement equal, essentially your steering sweep's set. So we remember the measurement from the other side, which is critical. We hold the tape measure up. We want to make sure that we want our laser beam to touch the same part of the tape measure. So if you're measuring it to the bottom of the tape measure on one side, you want to measure it to the bottom of the tape measure on this side. If you measure to the top on one side and to the bottom on the other, you're going to throw off the distance there and you're going to be off a couple millimeter. So we were 24.8 on the other side, about 24.3. So we're going to roll this out to about 24.8. Then I always like to go back and do a quick double check. When it comes to the front end, you can never take too much time and be too precise. So we come back over here, measuring to the bottom side. Perfect. We're 24.8 on this side. So now with that measurement being the same, we know when we center the steering, both sides are going to turn equal. In order to center the steering, you can always look from the back side down and look at the arm on the column and make sure that's square. Or you can, Sniper provides a grid. This isn't their grid, it's actually just a piece of plastic, a cover sheet. You can also use a paper towel, whatever you want. But you actually just hold this up and you're going to align the lasers so they're right on top of each other. So once you have that, you kind of take it apart, take the piece of plastic apart or your paper towel, whatever you're using, and you check on both sides where your laser's at. We can tell that it's 0 on both sides, which that's perfect. At least we know we did our job right there. Now that our steering sweep's set, our steering wheel's straight, now it's important to set our toe. The toe then officially is how open your steering is, okay? Which way your front tires are pointing. So if you think of toe out, that's your wheels facing outward. Toe in would be your wheels facing in. Depending on your chassis manufacturer, these are all going to be different to a certain degree, but they're all pretty similar. For comp cart, for non-front brake, lighter type chassis, we usually recommend 2 millimeter open toe. That's total, so that would be 1 millimeter on each side. For front brake application, shifter KZ, DD2, you have quite a bit more weight on the front of the go-kart, so the front closes a little bit more. We'll go 4 open, 2 on each side. But check with your chassis manufacturer. Everybody's a little bit different, but I would say you're going to be pretty safe with 2 mil total open. So now that we're at 0 on both sides, we need to just basically roll the tie rod tube to get 1 open. So I roll that one to get 1 open, which on the sniper is the dot. The dot indicates 1 millimeter. The solid line or the grid equals 2 millimeter. So we go 1 dot on that side, and we're going to go 1 dot on this side. Now we're 2 mil open. Really pretty simple. The next part, which is simple but it can get a little bit tricky, is now we actually need to tighten our tie rod tubes. And in order to do that, you can get some movement. So you want to be sure that you grab your 2 wrenches. It's best to hold the tie rod tube stable, spin your nuts back up to the tie rod tube fairly evenly. You don't want to force it too much, right? Kind of give it a good snug. Then you want to make sure that you hold your tie rod tube firmly and you don't let it spin on the ball joint. Tighten that one. Now, once you're done, you want to check and make sure that you have full movement. A lot of times, depending on your washer combination, how you tighten it, or the ball joint you're using, if you tighten one side too much, you're actually going to bind up your ball joint, and that's going to not let the steering be as freely as it needs to be. So we have that nice and free on this side. Go to the other side. We're going to do the same process here. We're just going to hold the tie rod tube. We're going to spin the outside nut snugly against the tie rod. Take our 2 wrenches. Snug down both sides. We're done. Bring it back. We're great. Everything's tight. Our toe's perfect. Our sweep's set. And now we're ready to hit the track. So that's your basic front end sweep and toe in alignment.